The physical world operates whether we are looking at it or not. A glacier carves through rock regardless of human perception. This is ontological objectivity, the premise that a reality exists independently of our minds. Epistemic objectivity is the scientific protocol for understanding that reality. It requires researchers to ensure their claims are impersonally testable and stripped of individual predilections. Many debates in the social sciences stem from a confusion between the pursuit of objectivity and the philosophy of objectivism. Treating these two distinct concepts as the same leads to a stalemate in how we evaluate research. Objectivism is the demand for absolute certainty. It insists valid knowledge requires a God's eye view, a privileged position guaranteeing the elimination of all error. In practice, scientists treat objectivity as a fallible, regulative ideal. They focus on identifying and minimizing specific known sources of bias, rather than claiming to have attained a state of perfect, permanent truth. When it became clear that absolute, objectivist certainty was impossible, many researchers mistakenly abandoned the pursuit of epistemic objectivity altogether. Rejecting an impossible standard of perfection does not require a slide into total subjectivity. We can accept that our knowledge is fallible while still maintaining rigorous criteria for evaluating evidence. This conflict is rooted in a historical debate over whether the study of human behavior can ever be separated from the values of the researcher. Max Weber argued that because social science investigates human motives and goals, the researcher is trapped. Since these motives are private and unobservable, Weber believed the researcher's own subjective values would inevitably color the findings. Ernest Nagel countered this by pointing out that social sciences can adopt the same self-corrective mechanisms used in the natural sciences. Nagel advocated for a strict methodological boundary between positive statements and normative statements. One characterizes a factual state of affairs, the other appraises that state. By subjecting positive claims to public, intersubjective testing, the scientific community can progressively identify and dilute the effects of individual researcher bias. The subject matter of human behavior does not prevent an objective methodology. Social science maintains its rigor by adhering to these strict methodological firewalls. Modern critics have proposed several arguments to prove that objectivity is impossible. We can test these claims against empirical research. The first argument, linguistic relativism, claims that the language of a culture determines the reality its members see. Under this view, researchers are barred from objective truth by the very words they use to describe it. This was tested by comparing English speakers with the Dani tribe of New Guinea, who use only 2 words for the entire color spectrum. Despite this massive difference in vocabulary, both groups perceived and mapped the color spectrum in nearly identical ways. Language dictates what is easy for a researcher to say. It does not dictate what the human eye is capable of seeing. The second argument involves underdetermination. Humean skepticism notes that because a finite number of facts can never deductively prove a universal law, researchers have no purely logical basis to favor one theory over another. Scientific realism resolves this by moving away from the demand for deductive certainty. Instead, it relies on inductive realism, the process of weighing the evidence to identify the most reliable and successful framework. Neither the limits of our vocabulary nor the lack of deductive proof prevents us from accessing and understanding the objective world. A third attack claims that a scientist's theories literally rewire their physical sight. This suggests that 2 researchers with different beliefs will physically see 2 different worlds. The Mueller-Lyer illusion tests this claim. Even knowing both lines are the exact same length, your brain perceives line B as longer. Raw perception is unaffected by what we know. Neurobiology confirms there are no neural pathways connecting higher cognitive theories to raw visual mechanisms. This biological reality is visible in the history of astronomy. Consider Kepler and Brahe observing a sunrise. Kepler interpreted the event through a Copernican model, while Brahe used a Ptolemaic one. Despite these opposing cosmic theories, both men physically saw the same sunrise. Human perception provides a veridical baseline. Our internal biases and beliefs do not have the power to overwrite the sensory information we receive from the external world. The final argument suggests that even if raw perception is objective, the data we extract from it requires interpretation. This would mean all data is theory-laden and therefore biased. Early logical empiricists tried to defend science by claiming that observations could be completely theory-free. They were wrong. Every measurement requires some form of theoretical interpretation. Hunt's realist resolution clarifies that data only needs to be theory-neutral, not theory-free. Raw percepts become usable data through a measurement theory, the methodology translating an observation into a number. Objectivity is maintained by ensuring this measurement theory remains completely neutral toward the explanatory theory being tested. Theory neutrality means the measurement instrument must never assume the truth of the hypothesis it is meant to investigate. The measurement model cannot be allowed to guarantee the results of the structural model. By keeping the way we measure separate from what we seek to explain, we can extract objective data even while using interpretive tools. Ultimately, the mechanics of epistemology define the critical relationship between a scientific researcher and the public they serve. Science is a social practice that relies on a moral order built on trust. When a researcher presents data to the public, they make a professional guarantee, promising rigorous quality control to minimize bias. Relativist doctrines break this chain of trust. If research is just a linguistic construct disconnected from reality, the reason to trust it disappears. If objectivity is dismissed as a myth, the primary ground for society to believe or act upon social science research is severely weakened. Scientific realism and the defense of epistemic objectivity provide the ethical foundation for the social sciences. This framework establishes research as a public good rather than a personal opinion.